Hi, good day to you. Hope you are finding the session as insightful as myself thus far. And for those of you who just joined us, warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us today. My name is Cassandra. I'm the Business Group Lead for Modern Work and Security in Microsoft Malaysia, and I'll be your moderator for this Fireside chat. It is my pleasure to be hosting the session here with three of our distinguished guests here. First, we have Puan Farhana Hanafia, who is the Senior Vice President, Group HR Management from Petronas. Next, we have Brian C., who is the Managing Director and Country Head for Persol Kelly Malaysia. Last but not least, we have Prashant Thiran, who is the founder and CEO of Leaderonomics. Welcome to the panel discussion, and thanks again for agreeing to share your thoughts and view with us here today. Let's move to our very first questions for the day here. Being people leaders in your respective organization, can you share more on how leadership looked like over the past few months, or I would say years? And what was top of mind of the HR side of things for all three of you in your respective organization? Right. Maybe we can begin or start with Roshan yourself.
Sure. So for me, I think it's been interesting this last year, right? Because I mean, fundamentally, maybe 5 to 8 years ago, we started to see different shifts, right? With the employee engagement, more employees want to work for companies with meaning. Employees want recognition, want empowerment, and a whole bunch of things. So we saw them move up the Abraham Maslow's sort of self-actualization curve, and that forced HR to change. But the last few years, you can really see a big distinction, right? And this happened in marketing, probably the marketing function probably about maybe 10 years ago, where you start to see marketing move from a very creative function into a very a distinct analytical and a systems-driven function. And we see the same sort of pivot happening in HR, where at least more and more you see that HR needs to be the employee intelligence agent, understanding employees and having deep insights on employees, and then being able to optimize them, being able to put them the right tasks, the right projects, being able to and retention and recognition. All these things are a flow from this whole employee intelligence sort of game that HR needs to sort of get into. So I can see more and more the space is changing, the function is changing, and leadership is also somewhat changing, where in the past it was very much about a leader managing an organization. Today it's a lot more what it was fundamentally, which is inspiring. I mean, leaders become almost like servant coaches and guiding, because in the past leaders had a lot of information, and information was what made them so important for every decision. But today information is somewhat democratized, so leaders don't need to make so many decisions. Decisions can be sort of cascaded down to the process, to the owner of that process, who can actually get access to all kinds of information. So I see fundamentally even organizational structures are changing. So it's a very exciting time where there's a lot of transition happening, and I think the role of the people, process owners, are going to be significant in terms of driving this new transition.
Great. I think a lot of insights there, Roshan. Thanks for sharing. What about yourself, Brian? How do you view for the past few months or even a year plus, right, in your organization? What was the changes that you felt?
Well, I think all of us are facing the same business transformation or changes that is happening in the market now. In Persol Kelly, now let me speak about from the leadership journey-wise, what we have been practicing. There are 3 traits of leadership that we have been practicing within Persol Kelly Malaysia. First is leaders to lead by example. Second is to have the mindset of partnership. Thirdly, communication and engagement. Let me elaborate a little bit further. Lead by example. Now, it's important and crucial, especially during this business transformation. Not only HR, but business stakeholder and the leadership team should support HR in leading the team through progressing through this business transformation as well. Mindset of the partnership. Persol Kelly, we believes very much that nobody works for anybody in the company, that all of us work with each other, support each other, to grow with each other, surpass through this pandemic as well as after pandemic, alongside with this business transformation. So we encourage a lot of collaboration and partnership amongst the employee, so that they can be involved and in fact participate. We encourage them to participate in this business transformation. So while participating, they can also share their innovative ideas, contributing to this growth in this transformation. Thirdly, communication and engagement with employees. This in fact is the most important element that we focus heavily on. Now we noticed that employees lost sense of confidence and security during this transition or change in this business transformation. Why? Because most of the employee, they are unable to see what is ahead of them. And naturally, of course, if they are not aware on what is going to happen, their sense of security will be shaken. Yeah. So hence, communication and engagement remains important in Persol Kelly Malaysia, where we constantly share updates, business direction, progress with all the employees to ensure that no employees are being kept in the dark. And by sharing all these updates, basically you are also preparing the employees mentally before we focus on skill set readiness. From the perspective of priority list on the HR side of things, it has been our people. It will continue to be our people that we will prioritize in. People from the perspective in we want to create a safe working place for our people to ensure that they continue to be given a fair opportunity to grow with us, as well as focusing on the upskilling and reskilling to ensure that our employees continue to stay relevant in this moving trend of the business transformation within the company.
We'll also hear from you, Puan Farhana, on your thoughts around this as well.
I think I echo a lot of the things that both Ryan and Roshan has mentioned. Maybe setting the context, Petronas being a national oil and gas company, but we're also transforming and want to get into the energy solution. So as you know, the world is changing. People are seeing, with the need to have a clean environment. The current oil and gas industry is seen as a very dirty industry. And the reality is people need energy. And we could either resist and say no, we're not, we should still exist the way we do, or start changing, because as we all mentioned, there's a customer preference. And we must start thinking about what the people want, and also given the purpose of why we exist, right? We're here to create value for the people. So it's not just about profit, it is also about the people and the planet. And because of that, we had to shift. And during that shift, the pandemic came at the same time. So I think the role of HR just, was put at the center of almost everything. Because at the very core, we needed to make sure that we still have a very safe, conducive environment. Malaysia still needs, the energy, manufacturing sectors will still need to run. So we need to make sure that, the 48,000 people that we have in Malaysia and across the world are all safe and is able to deliver that energy. So, I remember the first few months of trying to make sure that everybody's safe, that we had to create green bubbles so people are not workers are not affected. Work really closely with Microsoft as well. We just bought at that point in time MS Team, right? And we thought we had this wonderful 7-month implementation plan. It became 7 days, right? and that's when you realize how agile people work. When there's a clear purpose and intent, and you knew what you had to do, you use every single enabler or whatever's available in the organization to make it happen. So that actually led us to then start thinking, we could take this as a challenge, and at the same time, at that point in time, price of oil went down. We could take it, or let's just ride the market, or we can take this as an opportunity to really test the agility of the people. And we thought this is the best time to just transform. There's literally a burning platform for us to change. And we took that. And so we said, let's take on this whole hybrid working approach. Use the latest technology that we have. We're still trying to solve that problem. People still hate, the fact that, there is a technology issue sometimes. But what we found was if we really embrace this hybrid mode, we also realize, we now can reduce a lot of commute and allow a lot more time for people to spend time to do deep work. But, really use the office as a way to collaborate and get, people to innovate together to the collaborative way. We're using our technologies to do workshops, which we never knew we could in the past, right? Over and above that, we said, what if we democratize, as Roshan mentioned, democratize more information. Let's empower people, allow decisions to be made at the right time, because agility is all about being able to make the best decision for the people who can make those decisions. And then we said, what about career management? What if we democratize career management? That was one of the other things. When people felt that they have control over their career development, then they can choose what they want to do, and they put 120% effort in trying to make sure that they're the best for that opportunity. So one of the things that we looked at was also to create what we call a career marketplace. Really allow people to know what is required for them to really deliver what they need in terms of upskilling, reskilling themselves for their current role, but also to know what it would take to if they have an aspired role. And then over and above that, we also saw, as we were going through the pandemic, issues around well-being. It was there before, but it was under the radar. The pandemic actually allowed us to understand again, this is a serious thing. The trend, we've seen the numbers in the past, but we just never put a light on it. And so we realized leaders play a huge role. The element, apart from everything that the other panels have mentioned, the element of empathy came into the spotlight as well. We had a lot of leaders who in the past have been really macho guys or ladies who said, if I survive this, the rest of you could. But now we realize it's not the same context. People are going through a lot of different things. So even the debate of when to bring people back and how many people to bring back, actually, we had to force people to have a lot more empathy. People have very different circumstances, and we have to ensure that people make the best decision for themselves so that they can make the best decision for the organization. So it's been an interesting 2 years. I happened to got the job just before the pandemic. So, it's been interesting, but we realize that everything that we're doing today, whether it's about transforming ourselves, reimagining the way that we're approaching the energy as part of, and we want to be part of the solution rather than the enemy of clean energy, as an example. HR is now put actually at the very center of everything, because it's really about, how do we get the best talents? How do we make sure that people are happy with the job and are willing to give, additional discretionary effort to do really what's best? And if they have a very clear purpose and it's aligned with their own individual purpose, how can we give them freedom? Because that will really give, solutions from places we never thought could happen. So, those are some of the exciting things that, there's a lot more, but, I say those are top of my mind.
Right. I think with that, let us shift gear a little bit to go into a different question that we have here, right? I think with the ongoing pandemic that has triggered a tremendous acceleration in the digital transformation of our country's economy, we are also seeing a heavier reliance on digital tools for successful business continuity. Well, on this point, right, I guess maybe Brian, if I may just get your thoughts around how your organization has adapted to the challenges faced by your workforce, and what are some of the best practices that you could share from your end?
Thanks, Cassandra. Interesting question. Now, being leaders in the workforce industry, we have seen, in fact, a lot of companies or talents themselves how they have evolved over the past 2 years and what were the challenges that they have been facing since the start of the pandemic. Like what I've mentioned earlier, one of the key challenges that we have observed, all the industries, in fact talent as well, that they are facing, is they are not aware on what's ahead of them. There's a lot of things that they have been doing, but in not so aggressive mode. But because of this pandemic, like for instance, digitalization has become a big thing because all the business dealings need to be done virtually. So hence, organizations and talent are being forced into upgrading themselves towards the new normal platform from there. But I'm also glad to see how the market partner with each other, where we started to see expertise start coming in, sharing their consultation, advice from different angle. Like for instance, in terms of digitalizations in Perso Kelly, we are also blessed that we are connected with Microsoft as well. In this platform, at least we get a prior information, advice from the expertise like Microsoft before we partake or even adopt any digitalizations or digital tools within the organization. So I've seen a good sign of partnership in the market that I've never seen that before. A more aggressive partnership mindset amongst industry players, that everybody comes together and share common practices to help each other to improve from there. Now, particularly within Perso Kelly Malaysia, again, like what I mentioned, one of the key challenges that we have identified is we know that our employees, their sense of security, sense of confidence, in fact, the sense of trust will be shaken because company is moving to a new normal, a new platform in terms of business model or the work model. Hence, what we have done to ensure that our employees or to rebuild that confidence and sense of security within the employees is, again, like what I've mentioned earlier, we constantly engage and communicate with our employees to ensure that they are updated on the progress internally on what Perso Kelly direction is, what are the kind of digital platform that we will be onboarding, what are the kind of business model, work model that we will be embarking on. We make it transparent to all our employees. Now, it's important, I realize it's important for us to be transparent to our employees because this will build trust amongst employees. Not only it will build trust, but again, it will prepare them mentally before we go into all the reskilling, upskilling, and etc. So this is what we observe. Before we even go into the training, learning, and development, employees, they themselves need to be prepared mentally first beforehand.
Thanks so much. I think that probably you have given us a lot of insights, especially how Perso Kelly and how you guys actually manage that, right? From a best practices point of view, right? I think also with that, moving to the next question that we have here, we'll be directing this two questions to Puan Farhana as well as Roshan. I guess let me just read out the question to the audience here as well. So with technologies aside, pandemic has also shined a harsh light on what was already a widening skills gap that we have among organizations in the country. What is your take on leveraging, reskilling, and the development of digital skills and talent development and retainment, right, in your respective organization?
You know, just following up with even the earlier question, our industry will have to start looking at ways in which we digitize and automate a lot of things because that's the only way for us to keep up. We're not just competing domestically, we're competing internationally, right? The energy market is a world market. So, you know, the Malaysian domestic demand will not be enough for us to be able to sustain value creation. So whether we like it or not, it will change the way we work. Already today, the way that we operate plants, as an example, has changed. In the past, we used to have a lot of technicians physically managing a lot of the equipment in our plants. But today, with technology, a lot of sensor technology, as an example, has reduced the scope of those people. They don't necessarily have to be physically going from one equipment to another to gain information. Data is now being collected directly to a control center. Today we have control centers in HQ that can monitor, the movement of all our products from wellhead to pipelines to plants to shipment to final product in a single screen, in a single room, right? So all of that is now available. We're creating digital twins on a lot of our operations so that we can, again, make better decisions, collect data, and really become a lot more preventative rather than reactive in a lot of the decisions that we make. And we can take advantage as well by understanding outside-in perspective, the market situation, we can take positions. So that, and I'll borrow Brian, that actually has created a lot of concern by many of our staff. We lose our jobs. Recently our CEO came up and showed this animal, machine that can now take on a lot of the difficult jobs of going through tight spaces with the intent of reducing hazards to our own employees. But people take it as, my God, I'll lose my job, right? So how do we tell them that actually the job has not been reduced, the job value has now increased with all the new tools that are now available to you? The issue is, how do you then get yourself to be able to leverage on all this new data that we're collecting? How do we help you upskill yourself to apply all this new knowledge that we've gained to actually increase the value of your job? And actually what it also tells them is that the accountability now is actually in their own hands. No longer are we going to tell them this is what you need to do. And we're actually, as I mentioned earlier, we're opening up and telling them what are the needs of the organization from a skill point of view and where the gaps are. And if you take responsibility of saying, hey, look, if you have that issue and that gap and that talent, I'm the right person because here's what I have to bring to the table. Actually, now we're saying everybody is a marketeer for themselves. You have to really market yourself. That's why we call it a career marketplace. It's really about, putting yourself out there. And those people who say, look, I'm not interested, I'm not up to this, what we'll see is you yourself make that decision to be out of the market. And that's a huge shift, because in the past they used to say, hey, the role of the organization is to give us everything we need to do our job well. Now we're saying we're going to give you all the opportunity, whether it's learning, tools, everything that you need. Your job is to make you relevant. And it's a shift. This empowerment comes with responsibility and accountability for self. So I think that's probably one of the biggest shifts. And it's hard because I think it starts out even when we're in school, Cassandra. The syllabus has always been very ready. We were brought up in a rote learning type environment. This is the question. And I remember buying books on how to answer, right? We tried everything because it's a very prescriptive mode. Today, when the world is changing, there's no book with answers out there. You have to create your answers yourself, and that scares a lot of people, right? And if you think about it from a humanity point of view, we're taking away repetitive work and giving it to robots that could do it a lot better with lesser errors, right? We want to allow the humans to really do what humans should be doing, which is the intelligent thinking bit, and bringing humanity in the equation when we make decisions. So yeah, it scares a lot of people, but I think for those who see the opportunity, they'll be very excited. My job is to get them to say it's something that they should be excited about, not be scared of. And I think that's a bit, and we're giving them, again, reskilling, upskilling platforms for them to discover what they need. We want to make sure that we reward people for taking the time to upskill themselves. We want to create almost like a badge system where they can project everything that they got in terms of new skills, and that makes them being able to put themselves out there and look for really interesting jobs. The last thing we want is people saying, look, there's nothing left here for me that will excite me. We want to tell them, look, it's really all about you. You create the excitement, and if you can get together with a few friends, we're even thinking of, again, how do we get them to come together to come up with new innovative ways? We're actually teaching leaders as well. I know Roshan talked about this. I read your articles. How do you get leaders to also not be so biased and allow to give way for the young people that perhaps they have an idea that we might not have thought of. So this whole democratizing opportunities is something I truly believe in. That's what we're trying to do.
What about yourself?
I think Puan Farhana is spot on. Transitions are actually very painful. I actually learned this from Microsoft. So many years ago, as a social enterprise, we always get invited for Tech for Good, which is a Microsoft summit. And I remember in one of the summits, this is 2013 or 2014, if I remember correctly. They said, look, it's not a digital IR4. It's not about a digital revolution. It's much more than that. It's also a physical revolution. It's also a biological revolution. And I was thinking through that, right? Yes, it's true. No, there's a lot of physical changes with 3D printing, with autonomous vehicles, with robotics. Then it's also biological. People are going to live longer. David Kinzing, let's work on the genome mapping project and all this. And it's a combination of three revolutions happening in one, right? Mishmash. So when you talk about skills, when we say digital skills, it's actually, yes, digital skills with blockchain, with all these crazy stuff that's happening, but you also have physical changes and you also have biological changes that are happening. And to me, the gap, right, is scary, as I see in Malaysia, because I so many things that's happening, right? I start to realize, hey, the Indonesians are really good, and hey, for this price you can get like 3-4 Indonesians, and they're amazing, and we work virtually. So let me get a few Indonesians. Let me get a few. I've got a person working in Mexico for me, because we're putting content in Spanish. I've got folks in the UK, and so suddenly it's like, hey, wait, I can hire anywhere. Any market is accessible to me. Like Puan Farhana said, you become global, but the local markets also are accessible to everybody else, right? So it completely changes the skills required for your organization. And I know, in the pandemic, early part, my organization, myself, my team, including my leader, said, no, it's like that. Things will be the same. HR will be like this, we'll continue. I'm like, no, it's not. And after I said, okay, we'll see. Somewhere in November 2020, I said, cannot. We just have to cut, we just have to count, we have to change, we have to transform. And a lot of things, we developed an app to enable engagement, because we saw that, things like well-being and stuff, and we will maybe talk about that in a bit. But those were critical things to be taken care of now, not later, right? And you need to realize that employees cannot actually attain the skill. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And nobody understands. It's like, I told this story early on, you have this World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, slacked in the most innovative time in history, right, which is 1890 to 1920s. We had aeroplanes, cars, electricity, light bulbs, a whole bunch of things happened, and it caused displacement and destruction. And I think the same thing is happening, right? We need to destroy before we can reconstruct. And this is somewhat a time of destroying old systems, which people want to hold on to. But reconstructing new ways, new highways, maybe digital highways, maybe automated highways, and so on, and networks. And this causes a huge skill gap, right? From that transition. And the reality is, many of the transitions haven't finalized, right? Meaning that we are trying to change a car tire while it's moving, right? Not knowing the destination, and there's a lot of complications, right? So I think it's very critical that as leaders, right, it's important for us to understand this transition, at least the end destination, somewhat, and then try to prescribe maybe not the full journey, but at least step 1, step 2, let's just get to this point and have that clarity, because I think this point, it's hard for people to see what some of us may see or may not see, but what we can do is to really crystallize and provide that clarity of step 1 and enable everybody to get there together, so we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. And I think that's the big struggle in many organizations. We all see things in different lenses. I've got some great leaders, but sometimes they see things very differently, and sometimes they're right, sometimes I'm wrong, but we want to have that robust discussion. We want to reinvent culture. We want to reinvent structure to be aligned as a 21st century business, right? And I think that is that widening skill gap that needs to be sorted, which is really providing a little bit of clarity so that each of us can figure out the skill we need to get to step 1. I think that's all we need at this point, because it's really hard to see step 2 and step 3 and so on.
I guess with that, because we don't have much time left, we'll quickly go into the last question of the day that we have here. Well, it's been a very challenging past 2 years that we have, and the topic of mental health, as well as digital, as well as diversity and inclusion, D&I, has become amongst the hottest topic in HR. Can you actually share with us what are some of your strategies for your organization in undertaking to ensure these are actually taken care of?
I try to keep it short. I mean, one of the things that we started to do, we realized this was very important even at the early stages. And so we kind of developed an app where we looked at, on a daily basis, we could understand an employee's happiness level. And then we know that there were 11 other dimensions of work life that affected their well-being. The relationship with the manager, the amount of feedback they got, their ability to have introspection, the recognition they had, company alignment, how aligned they were, the satisfaction they had working, their ambassadorship, their relationship with colleagues, wellness and health, and just personal fitness and so on, and also personal growth. So we started to measure it on a daily basis. So on a daily basis, I can look at every employee and I start to know, and we just created a very simple method where we'll give them coins which they can redeem for gifts. You can go Watson, or they can go to buy a Starbucks or a Tea Life. But on a daily basis, I have a dashboard to see how they are doing in terms of their relationship manager. And I can call up managers and, hey, you got some problem. And they know, right? The managers know in their team how they are also doing. They can see downwards, right? And they can see every team. And what that did was significantly help us to understand areas to zoom in. Because when you have 70, 80, and some of you have thousands of employees, how do you zoom in on so many of them? Or who? And it helped me a lot because, I had a key person that showed me that, hey, the data showed me that in 3-4 months, this person is probably going to leave your company. And I said, okay, I got 3-4 months to work on it. And we successfully managed to keep that important talent. And so to me, I think data will be extremely key in understanding well-being and mental health, and also managing diversity and seeing where there is lack of and being able to address it. So I think companies need to start thinking about employee engagement technology strategies that will help them.
We also have a similar app, Rashan, because we're dealing with obviously thousands of people, but we also try to make sure that it's being managed with trust and confidentiality, because the last thing we want is people thinking, oh, okay, now you can use it against me, so we want to make it open. And I love the fact that you actually give something written for them to cooperate. So it's something I'll look into. But on D&I, just so that we cover that bit, we also realize that D&I is not only good for us because we can attract and retain a lot more people into the organization. It has also proven that it will allow us to penetrate markets now. If we're a company that's not known for D&I or are infringing a lot of D&I practices, and in today's world, we talk about just transition, how do we make sure that people feel included? That actually it will stop us from going to certain markets, as a matter of fact. So we need to step up our game. And so in Petronas, we are also looking at, how can we promote a lot more awareness around unconscious biases. We're trying to bring that into our talent identification and mobility. So we've got a target around, the gender at senior management position. We're looking at how we can include a lot more younger people into a lot of our critical projects, taking leading positions. We're creating real targets and intervention in attracting multinationals, because we are going to be competing globally. We cannot be seen only as a Malaysian company. We need to be seen as a global company. So therefore, the people who represent us has to be from the different parts of the world, that the markets that we want to penetrate. And we're also, taking very seriously, the whole engagement around diversity and inclusion, really getting feedback. We might bring, the right level of gender or age or multinational, but if people don't really feel that this is real, that their views are really being accepted, then it's just, for show. So we want to make sure that, we're doing the interventions with rating, and again, echoing what you said, Roshan, we need to get real feedback on the intervention. We might think we've got all the intervention, but maybe it's not working. And we also notice, because we're a global company, and I'm sure Microsoft gets that, different contexts around diversity. What we thought was great in Malaysia, apparently in one of our subsidiaries in Canada, was not acceptable, right? So then we go, we can't even have a specific intervention that can be rolled out across the globe. It has to be very specific to the context of that. So again, labor laws come in, etc. comes in, so that adds on to the difficulty and challenges. But at the same time, we're seeing how we're pulling people together for a single purpose.
Well, in Perso Kelly, we pay a lot of attention into creating employees' happiness ratio as well. Now, it's a good learning for me through this session from Roshan and Puan Farhana. We don't have that application yet to help us to track the employees' happiness ratio. But good to know that this application in the market. So I hope to be in touch with the two speakers later to understand more. But what we do internally, we have our employee engagement survey that we do constantly as well to understand at what state are the employees in terms of the happiness ratio. Manually as well, we do a personal engagement session with each of the employee. What we do is we make the whole leadership team, in fact, the leadership team volunteer to have this conversational session with our employees. During this session, of course, besides engaging to understand how do they feel now, what are the challenges, what are the areas that we can improve and look on, we will also discuss about their career progression. So it's a whole session that will cover including career progression platform as well. So in Perso Kelly, we focus on basically these three concept, namely CPR, not cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but it's culture, people, and resources. So what we want to ensure is whatever that we do, we will focus on these three CPR. Culture refers to, of course, the concept that we believe in Perso Kelly, work and smile. We want every individual to grow with us, to be given the opportunity to perform with us in regardless of their background. People, of course, is a big thing that we will be focusing. Let it be from it's mentality versus capability. So these are the perspective that we will look into in developing our people moving forward, and resources. So we want our people to work with the resources that we are going to onboard that will ensure their success at the end of the time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Roshan, Puan Farhana, as well as Brian, for your sharing. Please do stay tuned for the rest of the session today. Have a good day, stay safe, and see you soon.